So I'm on the Instagram Live, and I'm also recording this to save to my YouTube. So if you can't stick around and watch the whole live, don't worry. I will have all of this posted for you on the YouTube, on my YouTube channel as well, Moon Catching with Erica. So let's just get started. Um, I was just thinking and kind of just going over things, and I just know how it is when the new year starts. We are in this, there's a reset that happens. And so today I wanted to talk about the top 3 things to look for if you're someone who's looking for fertility support this year. So if you're looking for fertility support in 2023, what are some of the things that maybe you should be considering or looking for or looking at when you want someone to support you, when you're considering how best to move forward with your fertility? A lot of us do that thing where we have like this annual, we set our annual goals, our annual plans, and certainly if you're someone who's thinking about starting or growing their family, that may be at the top of the year planning too. Like, okay, what should I be doing or thinking about to make, maybe make a baby happen this year? And if you're someone who has been struggling with low fertility or secondary infertility, these things become, that much bigger, and you realize that you have maybe limited time, limited resources, and you maybe have been dealing with it for so long that you're just ready to finally have your baby in your arms. So what are the top 3 tips that I was thinking of? Like, if I were someone who, if I didn't have myself, right, and I was looking for someone to support my fertility, who would I be looking for? How would I be deciphering or navigating or filtering the people that I'm looking for to support me, whether I end up choosing a fertility clinic or holistic support? How best should I go forward with that? So I just thought of 3 things that you should be looking for if you're looking for fertility support. And it's very tricky. I definitely get it, because it's very tricky, because there's just a lot of noise out there. So just take Instagram, for example. There's ads and, sponsored posts and recommended, you should follow this page or you should follow this person. There's just so much noise. And whether someone is advocating for a supplement or, just sharing their fertility experience, sometimes, I see so many reels of people sharing their shots, themselves giving themselves shots at home. And it's just, that's always kind of what's out there. Or you get people sharing, what worked for them. And it's kind of hard to figure out, okay, that worked for you. Is that what I should be doing? It's very easy to kind of jump on bandwagons sometimes. So how do you figure out what to do, and certainly who to trust? Again, there's so many experts out there, but not everyone has the same qualifications. Not everyone has the same experience. Not everyone has the same receipts, basically, to say, okay, show and prove, this truly works, and not just for, uniquely for one person, because again, I can say I did X, Y, and Z, but how do you know that's going to work for you? So how do you cut through all of that, right? Because again, these things are finite: time, money, energy, resources, even, the emotional, how taxing it is. Sometimes it's just kind of, you may want to tap out at some point. So how do you figure out the best way to move forward? And that's something that I see a lot of times too. People say, this is our last IVF round, this is our last chance. And that has to be so heavy to go into something knowing that this is your last chance, your last opportunity. And so even with that, like, how do you make sure, or how do you try to ensure that this is going to be the one, this time it will stick, that this will be different? Okay, so let's get into it. My top 3 tips if you're looking for fertility support. So my top 3 tips. Number 1, I would say look for someone who wants to support whole body health. And you have probably heard me say this before. I have lots of things that I like to repeat because I just think they're so important and so valuable. But one of the things I like to say is that pregnancy doesn't just happen in the womb. Pregnancy is a whole body thing. And certainly if you're someone who's been pregnant before, even while you're carrying the baby, your body is going through it, right? Yes, your uterus is growing, your belly is growing, but your whole body is going through it. And that same thing applies beforehand, preconception, in the preconception period. It's a whole body thing. We are taught that our immune system is this thing here, and our cardiovascular system is this thing here. And, we aren't often told to consider that your body works together. All these pieces and all these moving parts work together. And so the same thing, your reproductive system is this thing here, but it cannot and will not function if the other pieces aren't working well either. Because there's this kind of spillover effect and crossover effect and cross communication, and all these things are kind of happening in conjunction with each other, that it's not this isolated thing, this isolated bubble. And so you need to understand too that the fate of your pregnancy happens well before you do the deed. So at that point, it's kind of like, you're shooting your shot, but the trajectory is already kind of predetermined, because the day of, when you're ovulating, the day of, when you're timing sex for fertility, all these things that need to happen in your cycle, whether you have good cervical fluid, cervical mucus, whether your implantation window is going to be enough, whether that egg health was healthy enough, and your partner's sperm health, all those things are already set in stone before you even do the deed. So pregnancy, the fate of your pregnancy is already set in stone. It's already kind of planned out. And so timing it is, of course, important. Timing sex for pregnancy is important, but you need to understand that whether or not it will go well, it will work the way that you want it to, if you have the outcome you want, if it will be successful in that little egg and the fertilization of the egg and implantation, all those things are kind of already rolling even before, before you ovulate, before you do the deed. So how do you figure out how to make sure all those pieces are in place? How do you figure out how to make sure that you have put yourself and your body in the best position possible? So you want to work with someone who's considering that your health is already kind of impacting and affecting your fertility. And you need to understand, the person you're choosing to work with, whether it's a fertility clinic or someone who's just coaching you or counseling you, they need to understand, and hopefully they are respecting how your body works, and not just trying to quick fix the whole thing, because that ain't gonna work. I shouldn't say it won't work. The chances of that working aren't as high or as favorable as if you are strategic and you're planning and you're organizing and you're getting your whole body health on the same page. Because it is immensely easier to help your body do what it needs to do than to force it to do what you want it to do. And so with that, I mean, again, fertility happens outside of the womb. So it is immensely easier to allow all those pieces and all those moving parts to do how they're going to do and flow how they're going to flow, versus trying to hijack your system. And, certainly that's kind of how I describe IVF sometimes. Your system's kind of hijacked, it's forcing it to bend to your will, to your reproductive endocrinologist's will, forcing it to bend to that will. And of course, the success isn't always there, right? There's failed cycles, or, you can't retrieve any eggs, no eggs were stimulated. So it's always kind of secondary in my mind. Doing it that way just is secondary. The primary effort, the primary thought should be, how do you get your body to do what it's supposed to do? So if you have, if your hormones are off, or if things like that are off, it's better to figure out the hows and the whys. Why are those things off? And get those numbers to increase, or in some cases you do want certain numbers to decrease, right? So just get them balanced, whether if they're too high or too low, wherever they're supposed to be, get them where they're supposed to be, right? And just figure out how best to do it that way. And so again, you want to make sure you're considering your whole body, because basically you're recruiting your whole body to support your fertility. You are recruiting your immune system. You are recruiting your digestion and your nutrient absorption. You are recruiting thyroid health. You're recruiting brain health, because a lot of the fertility hormones are triggered up in the brain. You're recruiting your gut health and your the microorganisms that live in your gut, because they play a role in estrogen metabolism. Estrogen, of course, is one of the big key fertility hormones. You're recruiting your liver health. So all these different parts of your body need and should be functioning optimal at the optimal level, optimal capacity, because your body needs to have all these things running to make sure that your fertility can also be supported. Because it's also about, reducing the strain on your body, right? I'm probably not going to be able to convince you that if you just drink water, your fertility will increase. That is obviously not, such a random example, but by reducing the stress and strain on your whole body, you can allow things to happen more naturally and to function easier. So if you are someone who knows that there are areas of your life that or your health that aren't right, that are, kind of creating a strain on your body, that shows up in your fertility. Fertility is only allowed to flow and be supported when the rest of your body is flowing and is being supported as well. Fertility won't always be able to function well, and certainly if you're someone who is experiencing low fertility, you know that your current fertility isn't functioning as well as it can. And sometimes that's just a matter of reducing stress and strain in other areas of your body. So tip number 2. So if you're looking for fertility support in this coming year, what would I say is tip number 2? Tip number 2 would be look for someone who's going to look at your cycle health. Okay, another thing you probably have heard me say, a healthy menstrual cycle is the only path towards a natural pregnancy. Like, period. No pun intended. But your reproductive years are the years from your first period to your last period, i.e. your period is the key to getting pregnant. You can't get pregnant, a young girl can't get pregnant until her fertility starts. And older, as we're aging, we can't get pregnant after our period stops. So these are the years. The period is the key. You have to have a healthy cycle. And by cycle, by period, I mean cycle. You need the whole thing to be functioning, right? And it needs to be a good cycle. So it can't just be, I bleed every month. Yeah, I bleed, and it comes back in 28 days, 30 days, whatever. It has to be good. Okay? It can't just be there. It can't just be like, oh yeah, of course, I'm a woman, I have a period. It has to be good. And I mean that because, excuse me, there's so many moving parts to your cycle. Of course, a lot of us are taught, from all we're taught to care about is the bleeding part, right? And sometimes that's, even for us, that's the most important part, because that's the part that we have to manage, But there are so many moving parts to your cycle. If we wanted to be like extra technical, I could say that there are 7 moving parts. But if I wanted to be a little less technical, there are basically 4 moving parts to your cycle. So there are your hormones, there's your basal body temperature, there is your uterine cycle, the way that your uterine lining changes, and then there's your ovarian cycle, the way that your ovaries develop, and the cycle that they go through. So that's like the least extra description I can give. But maybe on another day I'll tell you what I mean by 7 moving parts, because you can break all those down even further. But the whole point is that each piece, directly or indirectly, is affecting your follicle health and your egg health and your egg development. And of course, it's affecting your uterine lining and how thick and how the vascularization, how those blood vessels are being able to, provide nutrition and nourishment to the lining, of the uterus, because that's where the little eggie is about to be living for a while, right? When it's trying to implant. So you need to make sure that all those nutritious bits and pieces are there and waiting and healthy for the the hopefully fertilized egg, right? You need to make sure that your implantation window is good. So again, you can be bleeding every month, but you can have a really short implantation window. So you and your babe can be timing sex perfectly. His sperm may be awesome. Even your egg health may be amazing, right? And you have that fertilized egg every month. Who knows how, who knows? But you could be being kind of sabotaged by having a jacked up implantation window. That's like the train, if the egg is not able to catch that train and be embedded within the implantation window, and your body has enough time to recognize that the egg is there, that train is leaving with or without you, and you have to wait for the next train. You have to wait for the next cycle. So again, it's like all these moving pieces. And so you need to also understand that there are things kind of, again, directly or indirectly. So again, your basal body temperature is part of what you should be tracking in your cycle. It should be part of a healthy cycle, because it is a reflection of your thyroid health, and your thyroid hormones are very important for, everybody got somebody, sister, cousin, mama, somebody, that has thyroid issues, right? So we do understand that the thyroid is a vital, important part of our fertility health. What's next? Okay, so the thing to consider is that what is driving all of this? What is driving a good cycle? What is driving, good health? And that would be your habits, your nutrition, your lifestyle, the function of your health on a daily basis, the function of your body and your systems on a daily basis is driven by the inputs, positive inputs, as well as things that are detrimental. So it's not an output. I'm trying to think of an opposite. The pluses and the minuses. I don't know. So the things that are supporting and the things that are depleting. How about that? Things are depleting your fertility. So you can have good nutrition or bad nutrition. You have good habits or bad habits. You have good sleep or bad sleep. You can have, good stress management or poor stress management. It's the kind of a plus and a minus, right? And so at the end of the day, when all those pluses and minuses are tallied, where does it leave you? Where does it leave your fertility? Okay, so moving on to tip number 3. So those tip number 1 and 2. One was look for someone who wants to support your whole body health. Tip number 2 was look for someone who is going to look at your cycle health. And then tip number 3 is to look for someone who is willing to test beyond just the basic traditional fertility test. So yes, you probably by now have gotten your AMH tested, right? You probably have gotten your FSH testing. You probably know what your estradiol looks like, and you probably know what your prolactin looks like, what those levels are. Maybe you've done an antral count, and you've counted all your eggies, I don't know. But we all know that those things sometimes comes back normal, right? Comes back normal, and you don't have a lot to go on when they come back normal. Okay, so my new favorite quote is that your labs show your past and not your future. Your labs reflect that day. You went in on a Tuesday. That was your fertility that Tuesday. It doesn't even really say what your fertility was that Monday, and it certainly can't tell you what your fertility was, that Wednesday or, moving forward in the future. So your labs only show your past and not your future, and that's because none of this is static. None of this is set in stone. So if you don't know this by now, please understand that whatever is going on in your fertility, whatever you have been diagnosed with, whatever labs you have been told that are abnormal or low, for the vast majority of women, there are never any 100s and there are never any zeros, right? For the vast majority of us, those numbers are not set in stone. Those numbers were just a snapshot of time. And yes, they do reflect what is going on. And yes, they do reflect kind of where you were, and they do give a status report. But that's not it. That's not all. It's not over, right? And so the same way those numbers were being kind of damaged and impacted, and your fertility is kind of being slowly reduced. There is a way to get those numbers and get your fertility to improve and to restore those things, right? Because of the way that all of this is working, right? Your body is, I was going to say your body is a living system, which is so obvious, but that's just the first thing that came to my mind. It's always changing. Okay, you're growing a new organ every month. Your uterine lining is basically a new organ. It has blood vessels, it has tissue, it has all these things that you shed and regrow every month. Okay, that's just one example. Your body is always changing. None of this is set in stone. So I'm not saying don't get those labs. Yeah, test your AMH, test your FSH, test all of those things. But I'm also saying you should get labs that you can really use, because to test your AMH and to get these numbers back and to see what your FSH is, those are diagnostic. Say you're going to a fertility endocrinologist, right, or reproductive endocrinologist. They're using it to diagnose you. They're using that to get a diagnosis, to paint a picture. Okay, where are we? What's your status? That's fair. That's fair. But what's more important, the diagnosis or to understand why you're getting that diagnosis? Why is your AMH so low? Why are your eggs not responding each month? So the diagnosis is important to a point. I mean, it actually depends on how you feel. Maybe some of us actually, don't really like labels. So the diagnosis is important to a point. You get this label, you get this stamp. Okay, you now in your file, it probably says something like diminished ovarian reserve. Great. Not great, but great. Sure, fine, whatever. Okay, but what now? So where does that leave you? Where does that leave you as someone who's trying to grow their family, start their family? Where does this leave you? So you may have that for, let's say, a fertility clinic that will help them establish, your protocol. But again, it doesn't tell you how you got here. And if you don't know how you got here, you don't know what to do to fix it, to change it, to restore things, to, again, unblock your fertility, certainly to unblock your natural fertility. So that's what I mean by get better tests. You can get those tests, sure, fine, but you need to get something that you can use. So as you all know, I'm always talking about the Dutch test. That is what I use with my clients. That is what I used for myself. And that's just one of other tests. You can get a stool test. You get other tests, but so more to my point, there are other tests to be had than just finding out what your AMH is, because that doesn't help you figure out what's going on in your body that is causing these things. Because again, all these systems are working together. So yes, your AMH may be low, but is it because of inflammation? And if it is because of inflammation, where else is that showing up in your body? Where else is that showing up in your health, your whole body health? Do you have issues with acne or eczema or allergies, or it seems simple, it seems small, it seems totally unrelated, but because your body is in here swirling all around, all of this is related. It of course seems like it's not, but trust me, it is. And so that's when you need to get better tests. You can get your diagnostic test, sure, but you also need to get functional tests to understand, how is my body functioning, and by extension my fertility, how is my fertility functioning? So yes, you need to understand, you need to get labs that will help you understand the why. So make sure you're working with someone who's willing to look at those labs. You can even tell a lot just even from your basic, the blood test you get from your PCP, your annual blood test. It's called the CBC or the CMP. The one that tells you like your hemoglobin, your hematocrit, like those tests. And I run these with my clients. There's so much information even in your basic tests that will help you. So I'm not saying don't get these tests, and these tests aren't supportive, but you also need someone who's willing to look at them in detail, look at them with a functional perspective. You get this lab result back. This is the value. This is the number. How does it affect your function? How are you functioning? Sometimes we hear people talk about, I don't feel well. I go to the doctor and they say, well, your labs look fine. Yeah, but I don't feel good. So because my labs are fine, I should be fine, or you're telling me to just leave and to go be fine? This is what it means to look at your test kind of in a functional way. Because even if you're getting these lab tests that are coming back normal and you're suffering from low fertility, something's not normal, something's not right. And you aren't a textbook. You weren't made in a lab. The rules don't always apply to us 100%. So, you have your curve, and all the data is on the curve, and there's the special word, outliers. Things and people and results and situations that fall outside of the norm. That could very well be you. So yes, when you're getting back this normal lab, that's not your normal. You can be an outlier. And a lot of times, the way that we function, we are on the outskirts. We're on the outskirts of the normal curve, right? So just again, remembering, your pregnancy doesn't just happen in your womb, right? Your womb is just reacting to signals from elsewhere in the body. So you need to, test those other places, figure out what else is going on in those other parts of your body. So yes, you can look at the fertility labs all day long, but you also need to look at health labs and functional labs and whole body labs, not just a picture of your fertility, if that makes sense. Because I need to know how well my body is functioning, because your womb is living inside your body anyway, right? So when you're pregnant, right, all the things that you put in your body and you're exposed to, all these things are affecting your womb, right? It's not ironclad. It's not just this thing that kind of just sits there, and nothing can intrude. Things are intruding all the time. So we are aware of that during your pregnancy. So just think about that even now. Your eggs are there, sitting there. The same things are happening to them. They are being intruded upon all the time. And so how do we make sure that we are managing and monitoring our exposures and managing and monitoring, our whole body health, so that, when those intrusions happen, they are sometimes good intrusions, or, they are things that we want to happen to our fertility, and not just kind of our fertility being snowballed and, just kind of impressed upon in a negative way. So I just wanted to just remember that, kind of if you're at a loss, or if you are, kind of in a, that's a space that I was at, kind of initially in okay, it happens. I experienced my first miscarriage, and I was in a it happens space, and then experienced the second miscarriage, and then that's definitely when I was like, okay, red alert. This isn't normal. This isn't acceptable. This isn't reasonable. And of course, then I regretted not addressing things the first time that it happened. But, if you're just wondering what's going on with your fertility, it's important to look at the whole picture, to look at your whole body health, to look at your whole, all of the inputs. So you may hear me sometimes talk about the pillars of fertility, the things that are holding it up, supporting it, that are making the foundation of strong, healthy, good fertility, certainly strong, healthy, natural fertility, if you're someone who's looking to get pregnant naturally. And then if you're someone who is experiencing secondary infertility, it's like, for a fact that it was there yesterday. Where did it go? What happened? How do I get back to where I was? So I had Reagan in 2000. So I got pregnant in 2017, had her in 2018. So, in the past few years, it's like, okay, how do I get back to 2017 Erica, 2017 version, 2017 cycle, 2017 health, how do I get back to that version? Because even now, I feel healthy, I feel fine, but according to my fertility, I'm not. So how do I get back to where I was? And, even with this whole experience, certainly far from ideal, but I definitely have been so thankful to have the knowledge that I have, and to basically be able to, treat myself, because I took that time to look objectively at my whole health. I took a few of the standard blood tests, and got the results, and they were normal. So it's always okay. We can test this next, and we can test that next. And I thought about doing that. Going, keep moving the steps forward. But then I just said, no, this is, even if you tell me what is going on, I still won't know why it is going on. So that's when I decided, okay, I don't need you to tell me the what. I don't need you to tell me, oh, we found out that this is low, we found out that is low. I just need to figure out the why. And so it was more important for me to just test my health, test my whole body health. And that's what I did. Certainly, again, the Dutch test was like invaluable in that process. But I just need to figure out, what was going on. And so, yeah, I was healthy for all, on surface, all intents and purposes, good healthy weight, all these good things, right? But there was, when I got down to the nitty gritty, there was plenty room for improvement, right? So that's when I, all right, let's scrap what you've been doing, and you have to, kind of, I won't say radically, I didn't like turn my life upside down, but I was just very hyper focused and, in some ways radically changed my habits, just changing my habits. And so again, if you are anything like me, I'm in this whole like new year, new me, new situation. I'm so happy that I am praying, this baby is coming and will be earthside with me in 2023. But I definitely can think back to this time last year of still being, so in January last year, I was still kind of lost. I had a plan, but hadn't started like executing the plan, or, so I was still lost and was still unsure. I didn't have that much confidence or faith, and I had lots of hope, but not a lot of confidence that, things would be changing. But then a few months later, I started to get a plan and a path and see, oh, pointing to this and pointing to this. Oh, I can do this. Let's fix this. Let's fix that. So if you are like me and or how I would say this time last year, you're in this bubble of, these calendars, you can't help but start thinking about clocks and times and how much time, and, it kind of manipulates you, sometimes in a good way, it kind of puts a fire under your butt in some ways, but it does kind of play games with us, when we have this like year, this year I want to do this, this, and this, and if a baby is on that list, pregnancy is on that list, that's a lot, that's heavy, that's a lot. But if that is where you are, I have definitely been there, so I know how that feels, and I just want to make sure that you know that there is something for you to try. There's something for you to add on. There's something for you to do differently. There's another step for you to take to go a little bit further, because you need to find the why. The why. Maybe you have gotten your diagnosis. Maybe you have been trying. So maybe you're suffering from secondary infertility like I was, and you are trying to, get that second or third baby, trying to, because I was thinking the other day, like, oh, I'm going to have kids, maybe you're looking for kids, and so if you are, just understand that there's things to move forward with. There's things to try to add on. And if you have tried assisted methods, I don't know, maybe you are in a space where that is also coming to an end. Maybe you're being told that it looks like you're just going to need to use donor eggs, or have you considered adoption? Maybe these conversations are starting around you. And so if you are deciding to, how best to use this next year, if you are looking at that time frame and you want to figure out how best to move forward and how best to support your fertility this next year, I just really wanted to use these tips to help you kind of frame your plan when you're making your plan to move forward, or what the next steps should be. Again, money is always an issue, right? These things cost. Fertility clinics, fertility cycles, IVF, these things cost. And so, I'm well aware that, this is people, you can put in thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and maybe you have already, maybe you're still waiting for your baby. I don't know exactly where you are, but just understand that I respect and I value we all have to make these decisions and prioritize and be strategic. Maybe you are even feeling that age clock, that biological clock ticking of, oh, I'm 40 this year, so this year this year I just made 39. Maybe you're feeling that. I'm kind of running out of time. Or maybe that age gap between your other kids and this hopeful next kid is getting bigger and bigger. Definitely have been there. So, I definitely understand that there are reasons that we want to make sure that, okay, this next thing I do, this one, I need this to be it. I need this to really work out. And so supporting your whole body health in order to support your fertility is definitely, without a doubt, the place to start. I understand that some families, some mamas are still choosing and wanting to do IVF, in the way that they have it in their mind, that this is still the best thing for them to do, and that's fine. But I will definitely still strongly encourage you to add on the natural fertility piece, to add on the whole body health, because even when they make that, not make, but select that perfect egg, it's the best quality. Okay, this is the best egg. We have 5 really good eggs and 5 really good embryos. It still needs to go back into your womb, into your body. And so supporting and fixing and, kind of healing those things that were causing you to have low fertility, those things are still there. Science, the wonderful, wonderful beauty of those things kind of allows you to kind of bypass some of those things. But at the end of the day, it still needs to come back into your body, into this vessel. And traditional Chinese medicine, they call it your child's palace. So you still need to come back here. So you can't bypass that part. You can't skip steps in that way. So even if you're someone who's thinking that IVF is still a desire of theirs, just consider the whole body health piece and maybe adding the two, because it's documented that these things work. Natural fertility support, whole body health support increases your chances of even IVF success, and then of course success of natural pregnancy. So of course, if you are doing that for 2023, excuse me, I hope that these 3 tips are just a starting place for you to get some advice and some support on how best to navigate and make your decisions moving forward. As always, I'm here to provide any guidance and counseling and any support. If you would like to work with me or you have any questions for me, I am definitely always here to provide that, to be of service to you. And I hope that my little bubble of hope and inspiration is something that you can use, in those moments of, I don't think this is going to happen. This isn't probably going to happen. Just know that there are so many of us who have been there and thought it was never going to happen. There's so many of us that it has happened for, but I do know that there's so many that are still waiting for that change and that transformation, and that those pink lines, or when you get the blood test back, whatever it is you're getting back and it says, yes, sis, you're pregnant. And so I certainly wish you all the best, and I'm sending all my love and support and encouragement to you in 2023, and I'll be back for more next time.